some of the greatest filmmakers are also the most frustrating, something that might be particularly true with director Ridley Scott. With groundbreaking films like Alien, Blade Runner, and Gladiator, Scott's highs are legendary, which makes his misfires so puzzling, and none more so than 2014's Exodus: Gods and Kings. Retelling the biblical story of Moses, the movie faced criticism even before its release. Scott was open about his lack of belief in the story's spiritual aspects, stating that he would portray its miracles from a non-believer's point of view. And star Christian Bale's claim that Moses was barbaric and likely schizophrenic only fuels skepticism among those who might have otherwise been most excited for the film. When Exodus hit theaters, audiences found the epic more grim than grand, weighed down by thin characters and hollow CGI. Still, Scott's next film was a real late career highlight, and the buzz for Gladiator 2 has been great, proving that directors can create incredible work even after a movie like Exodus, arguably Scott's worst. How are we defining worst? With the acronym FILM, which combines 3 objective measurements with my own personal perspective. If you'd like to check out the movies we'll discuss, I've put links in the description. And as always, remember, worst film doesn't necessarily mean bad film, and it definitely doesn't mean bad filmmaker. After all, just look at Robert Zemeckis. Known for groundbreaking films like Back to the Future, my personal favorite movie of all time, Zemeckis' career has often been a showcase for combining heartfelt storytelling with technical wizardry. Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Forrest Gump were revolutionary, and while The Polar Express was divisive on release, it's now a holiday classic. But his 2022 remake of Pinocchio falls short of that legacy. The movie is part of Disney's trend of reimagining their animated film classics in live action. Arguably, none of these remakes have improved on the originals, but Pinocchio, which went straight to Disney Plus without a theatrical release, is particularly disappointing given the talent involved. The movie was Zemeckis' reunion with Tom Hanks, one of his most trusted collaborators. The remake made changes to the original film's story, intended for greater emotional depth, specifically giving Geppetto a dead son, and it adds more set pieces and songs, but despite good intentions, the movie feels, please pardon the pun, wooden. Competently made, but lacking any of the magic touch that defined Disney and Zemeckis' best work. The original Pinocchio was also a disappointment upon release, only finding its audience later. It's hard to imagine the same happening with the remake, even if I do like the performance from Tom Hanks, a sentence that could also apply to the Coen Brothers' weakest film. 2004's The Lady Killers was a remake of the 1955 movie of the same name, one of the best British films of all time. The material, black comedy crime, seemed like a perfect match for the filmmaking duo to remake. Fargo, a bleakly funny thriller, was one of the best films of the 1990s. The Coens transplanted the story from London to the American South, with Tom Hanks leading a gang of criminals as a cartoonish southern fried con man in the vein of Foghorn Leghorn.
We must have waffles. We must all have waffles forthwith.
His performance fits well within the quirky world that the Coens create, but the film itself feels broadly miscalculated. While the original is droll and witty, this remake is tonally confused. Roger Ebert put it best when he said that the movie feels like a Looney Tunes episode, a tone that even filmmakers as versatile as the Coens can't sustain. Thankfully, the story of criminals being thwarted by one old lady wouldn't stop the Coens from soon bringing brilliant life to old men. As we're seeing, remakes are always a gamble, even for top directors. But while The Lady Killers at least seemed like a good fit for the Coen Brothers, the same can't be said of Tim Burton's remake of Planet of the Apes. Burton built his career on dark, imaginative worlds, and some of my favorite films of his are adaptations that align with his interest and unique aesthetic, like Batman or Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I'll admit, I'm generally not the biggest Burton fan. I really admire his skills as a stylist, but I rarely feel fully invested in his movies, partly because of how that style draws so much attention to itself. Ironically though, I wish his Apes remake had actually done that more. Burton's take on the sci-fi classic follows Mark Wahlberg as an astronaut who crash lands on a world ruled by intelligent apes. The movie has very impressive makeup and some good performances beneath it, but it's weighed down by pretentious dialogue, an uncomfortable human-ape love triangle, and an infamously confusing twist ending. I saw Planet of the Apes in high school and went back at least three times, convinced I'd missed something that would make the ending make sense, but I don't believe that was the case. Apparently though, an insert in the DVD explained it, so there's that. I'm not inherently against reboots. In fact, just 10 years later, Apes itself would be rebooted into one of the most underrated trilogies ever. But Burton's take on the material feels visually bland and a bit soulless, coming across more like work for hire than the output of an accomplished auteur, something that also applies to Kathryn Bigelow's weakest film. Bigelow is the definition of a trailblazer. She's known for intense, action-driven films like Point Break and The Hurt Locker. Her work earned her a well-deserved reputation as a master of tension, and the distinction of being the first woman to win the Academy Award for Best Director. But The Weight of Water, released in 2000, was a different kind of challenge, a slow burn mystery that interweaves two storylines. One follows a 19th century murder while the other centers on a modern day couple uncovering the secrets of the past. This is kind of an odd comparison, but the complex structure across different timelines reminded me of some of of William Goldman's lesser-known novels, particularly Control, or maybe Kate Atkinson's novel Case Histories. Either way, it proved difficult to capture in film form. While the historical timeline displays Bigelow's talent for atmosphere, the movie never fully gels, which isn't surprising considering it was shelved for a couple of years before finally being released. Ultimately, The Weight of Water was part of a string of financial and critical flops for Bigelow, but she'd soon take the independent route with The Hurt Locker, which would make history. Meanwhile, around the same time, Woody Allen was facing a creative slump of his own. Allen is, of course, a controversial figure, and that reputation can cast a shadow over his filmography. But putting that aside, the early 2000s marked a low period in his career. During his partnership with DreamWorks, films like Small Time Crooks, Hollywood Ending, and Anything Else all struggled to capture the charm and wit of his earlier work. Although, in fairness, Quentin Tarantino loves Anything Else, so maybe it's worth revisiting. But Curse of the Jade Scorpion might be the most glaring example of this slow period. The movie follows an insurance investigator, played by Allen himself, who's hypnotized into committing crimes. It's set in the 1940s and goes for some old Hollywood glamour, a period Allen clearly loves and that he explored beautifully in The Purple Rose of Cairo, which I really recommend. This movie doesn't work though, and the biggest reason may be Allen casting himself in the lead. Allen can be a leading man, but the role was meant for a much younger actor. Apparently he only took it on after many others, including Tom Hanks, turned it down. As a result, the movie feels like it's wasting a lot of its potential. Allen himself admitted he let down the rest of the cast by putting himself in the lead, and he knows the importance of casting. He once reshot an entire film after realizing he'd miscast it, but Jade Scorpion was simply too expensive to do that. It was his most expensive movie ever, and Allen has cited it as his weakest effort. He would eventually regain his stride with movies like Match Point and Midnight in Paris, but in a prolific career, Allen's creative low point came from his highest budget, which also happened to Hayao Miyazaki. Miyazaki is a Japanese filmmaker known for creating animated masterpieces like Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, and My Neighbor Totoro. In addition to his iconic characters, he's also known for crafting richly layered and at times painfully poignant stories that resonate with audiences of all ages. But while his best work finds meaning in simplicity, Ponyo stumbled for being overly simplistic. The 2008 film follows a young boy and his friendship with a magical fish girl who longs to become human. With Miyazaki's widest release to date and a well-done English dub featuring major actors like Matt Damon and Liam Neeson, Ponyo reached broad audiences. But while it's visually stunning, it often feels like a storybook come to life. The low stakes and straightforward plot lack the thematic complexity seen in his other films. Of course, I do understand that that's partly the point. Ponyo is seemingly a movie meant not for children, but for toddlers, and in a way, it feels unfair to criticize it for successfully hitting the mark. It's a beautiful movie, it was a big commercial hit, and I do plan to show it to my newborn daughter when she's older, but at least for now, I do think it is Miyazaki's weakest. So, what would you pick as these directors' worst, and who would you like to see in the next installment? If you want to check out any movie we've discussed, I've put links in the description, and you can check out the other entries in this series by clicking the playlist on screen. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and I hope you have a wonderful day.